The market smelled like oil, blood, and sweat. Celia could barely walk. Her feet were bruised, her wrists tied tight with glowing plasma cuffs that burned her skin if she moved too fast. The slave merchant pulled her by a chain like she was an animal. Around her, voices shouted, bids buyers laughed, pushed, traded living people like they were nothing but objects. She was only 19 cycles old. Once a daughter of a proud house, Celia now stood barefoot and half-dressed in front of hundreds of greedy eyes. Her soft purple skin was dusty, her silver-white hair tangled and falling over her face. She kept her golden eyes low, but even then, she felt them all staring. "Strong bones," one alien said, sniffing. "Pretty face." "Right." Half Cerulean. The merchant grinned, patting her shoulder like she was a machine. "Rare. Mixed good genetics, perfect for breeding or hard labor." Last offer was 60,000 credits. "Too much," another spat. "She's small. She's valuable," the merchant snapped. "Sold by her own family. No return. No record." Celia flinched at that word, family. The people who once held her, fed her, smiled at her, had thrown her into this nightmare. All for money. All for survival, they claimed. But she would have rather starved together than live this way, near the edge of the market. A tall figure leaned against a rusted metal pole. His jacket was torn, boots covered in red dirt. Human, clearly out of place here. He had short dark hair, sharp gray eyes, and a scar running down his cheek. His name was Commander Holt. Once a war hero, now just a man looking for peace. He wasn't. Shopping. He hated this place. But this was the only place to refuel, and he had no choice but to pass through. He didn't mean to look at her, but when he did, he couldn't look away. She wasn't begging, wasn't crying. She just stood still, face blank. But her eyes, those golden eyes, were full of something he hadn't seen in a long time. Quiet pain. A kind of pain that didn't scream, whispered. "Move it," the merchant barked. Yanking Celia toward a transport cage, she stumbled and fell to her knees. The chain rattled. Laughter echoed. Holt took a step forward. "Don't," a voice warned. A mechanic standing near him shook his head. "You get involved in this, you're dead. Interfering with slave law on Coulter 6 is a death wish." Holt said nothing. He watched Celia get dragged up again. Her hands were shaking. Her lips were dry. Still, she didn't scream. That made something twist inside him. He turned away, forced himself to keep walking. He had seen too much pain in war. He wasn't here to save anyone. Not anymore. But 20 steps later, he stopped. He stood there for a long moment. Around him, engines hummed, aliens argued, children cried behind cages. But all he could hear was that chain, dragging across metal. He turned his head. Celia was being locked inside a caged truck now. The door slammed. Her face turned toward him just for a second. She met his eyes, and then she whispered. It wasn't loud. No one else noticed. But Holt heard it. "Please help me." He stood frozen. The cage drove off. The market noise returned. Holt clenched his fists. He tried to forget that whisper. He tried to tell himself she wasn't his problem. She was just another victim. One of many. But something about her didn't let go. Back at his ship, he sat for hours, staring at nothing. That whisper echoed in his mind. The last time he had heard that kind of voice, it was during the Warren orphan child, buried under rubble. He hadn't saved that one in time. The memory still burned. Now he had a chance. He stood up, typed, into his ship's console. Track cargo ID #Z-8812-slave transfer. He waited. Then it flashed on the screen. Destination, Orion Mining Prison. Departure in 6 hours. He stared at the countdown. She was being sent to hell. He opened a locked drawer. Down inside was an old sidearm. A human war-grade blaster. Dusty from years of silence, he picked it up, loaded it. Spoke quietly to himself. One more time. Outside, thunder rumbled. A storm was coming, and Holt was ready to walk into it. Asterisk rain tapped the metal roof of the Slave Depot like a slow, cruel countdown. Inside the dim-lit office, Commander Holt watched the old monitor. It showed live feed from a security camera. Celia sat alone in a cage, legs crossed, head down, hair wet and tangled over her face. Her arms were still cuffed. No food, no blanket. No words, the feed had no sound. But Holt didn't need it. He remembered the whisper. Please. Help me. It wasn't a scream. It was quiet. Tired. A voice that had lost faith in kindness. But still tried one last time. He had seen many prisoners in his life, during the War of Wastes. In pirate sieges, in death camps across the belt, but this was different. She hadn't asked him because he was strong. She asked because everyone else had looked away, his hands curled into fists. I'm not like them. He opened a crate near his pilot chair. Inside, an old infiltration kit MP, seeds, stealth injectors, black gloves, and a rebreather mask. Illegal tech, banned in most systems. Holt had kept them anyway. Old habits die hard. He injected himself with a stealth mod that numbed his scent and body heat. Then he pulled on a cloak that shimmered like liquid air. It was time. Outside, the depot was half asleep. Security was thin at night, especially before prisoner transport. Most guards were drinking or playing cards in the back room. Holt used shadows like they were old friends. One guard passed right by him without noticing. Another paused, turned, but Holt had already vanished behind a crate. He moved with purpose, silent and sharp. He found the transport logbook, Cage 4, subject Z8812, slave. Celia transfer, 3 o'clock, Orion Mines escort, 3 armed guards, 3 guards, 1 girl. He could handle that. In the holding cell hallway, he finally saw her again. Cage 4, there she was, still awake, staring through the bars. Her golden eyes glowed faintly in the dark. She looked even thinner now, like she was fading. Holt pressed his hand to the biometric lock. It beeped red. Damn it, he muttered. Then he remembered Cerulean Cage's required voice print. He needed a vocal command. A plan sparked. He reached into his kit, pulled out a small AI mimic chip. It could play voices perfectly. Earlier in the slave market, he had recorded the merchant's voice while pretending to browse. He pressed the chip to the lock. A mechanical voice echoed, "Open Cage 4." Click. The cage hissed open. Celia's head snapped up. Her eyes widened, but she didn't scream. She simply stared, then whispered, "You came." Holt stepped inside and kneeled. "Have time to explain. We need to move." She didn't argue. She tried to stand, but her legs were weak. She fell. Without hesitation, he picked her up in his arms. She was light. Too light, he pulled the cloak over them both and began moving. But just before they reached the hallway, Gigzadash shouts. A guard had noticed something on the screen. Cage 4's open. Footsteps. Close. Holt cursed under his breath. He rushed toward the emergency shaft. It was tight and dark, but it led out behind the depot. He kicked it open with his boot and crawled in, holding Celia close. She gripped his coat weakly. "You'll get in trouble," she whispered. "I already am," he replied. Outside, rain was falling harder. Thunder cracked the sky. He dashed through puddles, reaching a narrow alley behind the fuel tanks. His ship, the Aegis, was just 2 blocks away, disguised among freighters. But lights burst behind him. "Stop! Put her down!" a guard yelled. Blaster bolts flew past them. Holt ducked and rolled behind a container, shielding her with his body. "Are you hurt?" he asked. "No," she whispered, but her eyes were wide. She was shaking. He pulled out his sidearm and fired back, once hitting a floodlight above the guards. Darkness swallowed the yard. "Stay close," he said. They ran again, slipping between crates, crawling under fences, dodging fire. Holt was bleeding from his arm, but he didn't slow down. Finally, the Aegis appeared. As soon as they reached the ramp, he shouted, "Open hatch override!" The door slid open. They rushed inside, and it slammed behind them. Engage liftoff. Holt barked at the AI. Engines roared to life. Outside, guards pounded on the hull, but it was too late. The ship rose into the storm clouds. Inside, Holt leaned against a wall, breathing hard. Celia sat on the cold floor, staring at him. "You didn't even know me," she whispered. "Why risk everything?" He looked at her quietly and said, "Because everyone else acted like you didn't matter. But I saw you, and that was enough." She didn't know what to say. For the first time in days, maybe weeks, she smiled just barely. The stars looked calm, but inside the Aegis, alarms screamed. Warning. Unregistered takeoff. Military alert triggered. Pursuit detected. The AI's voice echoed coldly through the ship. Holt gritted his teeth and slammed a hand on the control panel. Shut off the beacons, jammed their scans. The ship jolted. Behind them, 3 hunter drones had launched from Coulter 6, chasing fast, armed with plasma stingers and trackers. These weren't just security bots. They were war-built predators. Celia sat in the co-pilot seat, her hands gripping the edges, still wrapped in thin fabric. Her cuffs were still on, glowing faintly. Her skin looked paler now under the ship's dim, red light. Holt moved like a soldier again. Calm, quick, sharp. He flipped switches, rerouted energy, and spun the ship between meteor debris like he was flying through a maze. "Do you always steal people and fight the sky?" Celia asked. Softly, almost teasing. Holt didn't smile. Only when someone innocent is left to rot. She looked at him for a moment, then turned her head to the stars again. A flash behind them, one of the drones had locked on. "Missile inbound," the AI said. "Deploy scatter flare," Holt shouted. A burst of burning light exploded from the back of the Aegis, confusing the tracker. The missile lost its target and spun off into the blackness. But the drones were still gaining. "We won't outrun them," Holt muttered. "We need cover." "There's an asteroid field ahead," Celia said, reading a blinking map on the screen. "Thick metals. They won't scan through it." Holt glanced at her. "You read star maps?" "My father taught me," she said. "Before he stopped calling me his daughter." They entered the asteroid zone. Giant rocks, the size of towers, spun silently through space. Holt angled the ship between them, slipping through narrow cracks. The drones followed, but one smashed into a rock and burst into blue fire. "Two left," Holt said. But now the path was tighter. One wrong turn, and they'd be dust. Suddenly, the lights inside the ship flickered, then dashed darkness. "Power core hit," the AI warned. "Navigation down. Main engines failing." They were drifting. The remaining drones closed in like wolves. Celia looked at Holt. "What do we do now?" He didn't answer. He stared out at the largest asteroid nearby, a dark, twisted thing with a jagged cave in its surface. "We hide," he said, "and we fight like humans." He activated manual controls and used the remaining thrust to drift the Aegis into the asteroid cave. It was tight, but just enough to fit. The ship scraped rock as it went in. Sparks flew, but they made it. Darkness surrounded them. The drones hovered outside, scanning, confused. "Now what?" Celia asked. Holt stood. "Now I go out." She stood too. "What?" "No, you're injured." "You can't. I fought worse," he said, loading a portable EMP launcher from the weapons locker. "You stay here. If I don't come back, in 10 minutes, take the second pod and fly to these coordinates." He handed her a chip. "It's an old human outpost. They'll help you." "I'm not leaving you," she whispered. He paused. "You just met me. You were the first person to care," she said. "That's enough." For a moment, Holt's strong mask cracked. "Just a little fine," he said. "You cover the hatch. If they get past me, blow the door and run." They moved together through the tight hallway to the side exit. Holt climbed out first, stepping onto the asteroid surface in silence. The gravity was weak, the dust dry and floating. He knelt behind a sharp boulder, watching the drone lights flicker above. He took a deep breath, then fired. The EMP shot burst upward, blinding and silent. One drone froze midair and dropped like a stone. But the last one spotted him. Red lights flashed. It dove. Shooting bolts of energy toward him, Holt duck-trolled, then aimed his last shot, clicked empty. The drone was almost on him. Then a sound boom. Drone spun, hit from the side. A second blast followed. Holt turned, shocked. Celia stood at the cave's edge, holding a blaster twice her size. She had fired both energy shots perfectly. The last drone exploded. Silence returned. Holt walked toward her.
Stunned.
"You said cover the hatch," she said softly. "You didn't say I couldn't help." He laughed, not loudly but real. "I guess I deserved that." She looked up at him. "Are we safe now?" "No," he said. "But now we've got a chance." Asterisk smoke curled through the Aegis's corridors. Holt limped down the passage, sparks crackling from a wall panel beside him. Behind him, Celia tried to keep pace, her bare feet slipping. Slightly on the scorched metal floor, they'd escaped the drones. But at a heavy cost. The main thruster was crippled. The AI's voice echoed, dull and damaged, propulsion offline, hull integrity at 42%. Life support, unstable. His teeth. "We need to get off this rock." He glanced at Celia, who hadn't said much since she fired that weapon. Her hands were still trembling from the shock of holding it. She wasn't a fighter. She wasn't meant to be thrown into war. But she did it anyway. "Come with me," he said quietly. "There's an engineering pod backup drive in old tech. If I can power it, we can punch one jump out of here." She nodded, but then stopped. "Even if we jump, where will we go?" Holt didn't answer right away. Tapped on a screen showing a blurred map of nearby systems. Then he pointed to a red dot blinking in the corner. "An old mining station," he said. "Human-built, abandoned during the war. It's not on any alien grid. We hide there, fix what we can, then decide." She looked at the dot. "Do you trust me?" he asked. Celia met his eyes. "I did, before you even spoke." Something passed between them. Not romance. Not yet. Something deeper trust between two broken people who refused to break each other. They reached the engineering pod. Holt opened the panel and cursed. "Wiring's fried. We'll have to bypass the whole conduit." "I can try," Celia said suddenly. He blinked. "You know, systems? Zarelian ships use similar power loops. My uncle made me repair mine." "Systems, when I was 10, said it was punishment for being soft." Holt gave her a tool set. She went to work. As she connected the relay, Holt grabbed the shortwave beacon. He needed to clear their jump path. Suddenly, beep, 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 the radar flashed. "Incoming Vesselin, marked armed. Approaching fast." "No," Holt muttered. "They found us." "Can we outrun it?" Celia asked. "Not unless we get this jump drive online right now." She pushed the final wire into place. The pod lit up. Holt jumped into the seat. "What?" "Holt." "On." He slammed the ignition. Outside, the dark warship descended over the asteroid like a giant claw. Its shape was ancient, not cultery, not pirate. It had a crest. Celia's face went pale. That's my family's sigil," she whispered. "The House of Valsirith." Holt stared at the screen. "They're not just after you. They're here to erase you." "Then we can't." "Run," she said. "We can jump." "No," she said, breath trembling. "We can't just escape. You have to make them know I'm still alive. It will bring every enemy you have," Holt warned. She looked up at him, eyes glowing brighter. "Now, then let them come." The warship opened fire blasts of green plasma. Tearing through the asteroid walls, Holt pushed the throttle. The Aegis shot forward, one engine sparking, the hull trembling, but it flew. The enemy ship chased, firing blast after blast. Then Holt pressed a button on his console. Time to fight back. "What is that?" Celia asked. "A human gift," he said. "Old Tech-Earth didn't build pretty ships. We built angry ones." The back of the Aegis split open. A hidden cannon slid out. Holt aimed. He waited, counting seconds. Plasma shook the cockpit. Lights blinked, and he fired. A shockwave exploded from the cannon, ripping into the warship's flank. The giant vessel reeled, part of its engine. Bay torn apart, but it wasn't destroyed. "Jump path clear," the eye shouted. Celia hit the coordinates. Holt barked. She slammed her hand on the nav console. The stars stretched, the world turned blue, and the Aegis vanished into hyperspace. Just as the enemy ship prepared its final strike, silence fell. Only the hum of damaged systems remained. Celia leaned back, heart pounding. "You knew they'd come," she whispered. "I guessed," Holt said. "But I didn't know they'd bring your whole house to kill one girl." "I'm not just a girl," she whispered. "If I survive, I could change the galaxy." Holt didn't say anything. He didn't need to, because he'd already made his choice. The stars outside were calm again, but inside the Aegis, silence had turned heavy. The emergency jump had saved them for now, but the ship was damaged, low on power, and drifting near a dark, uncharted moon. Celia sat near the viewport, hugging her knees, a blanket draped over her shoulders. Her once bright silver hair now hung limp. Her golden eyes stared into the void, but they weren't empty, they were thinking. Remembering Holt patched a crack in the wall behind her. His shirt was torn, his arm bruised, but his hands worked fast, steady. He finally spoke. "Why did they send a warship? With your family crest? To destroy you?" Celia didn't answer at first, but then she said softly, "Because I'm not supposed to exist." Holt turned. "What do you mean?" She looked up, her eyes meeting his. "I was born to two houses that were never meant to mix. My father, High Lord of Velsereth. My mother, she was from the slave class, healer, a nobody." Holt froze. Celia went on, voice steady. "They called it treason, hidden for years. But when I came of age, the blood tests didn't lie. I had both lineages that made me ... dangerous." "Because you had royal blood?" Holt asked. "Because I had the right to challenge them," she said. "If the truth came out, every noble who clung to bloodline power would fall." He sat across from her, silent. She laughed, bitter and tired. "So they locked me away, said I was sick. Then they sold me off-world to make me disappear without blood on their hands. And now they're hunting you," Holt said quietly. "To finish it?" She nodded. "They'll chase me to the edge of every system." Holt didn't look away. "Then we'll go farther." A small tear escaped her eye, but not from sadness. From shock. She had expected him to run by now, to say you're too much trouble, but he stayed. He always stayed. He handed her a small packet of dried food. "Eat. We'll need energy to fix the ship," she smiled faintly. "You talk like we're in this together," he said. Later, as the ship floated into orbit around the quiet moon, Holt checked the scanners. No signs of life, no satellite nets. Looks like an old mining moon. We can land and hide the ship. "Do you think they'll track us here?" She asked. "If they do," he said, tightening a strap on his belt, "they'll wish they hadn't." She stared at him. "You're not just a pilot, are you?" He paused, then nodded. "I was part of Black Steel Human Strike Force during the border wars. We did the missions no one talked about. It's the kind that leave scars," she asked. He showed her the one across his side. "Yeah, the kind that never heal." They both smiled a little. As the ship touched down on the dusty surface, they stepped out into silence. The sky was dark red. The ground cracked with age. Old mining towers stood like skeletons in the distance. "We'll hide the ship inside that ravine," Holt said. "Then we go underground and find shelter." But before they could move, Celia froze. A sharp hum rang in the air. Then a flash BZZT. A dart struck Holt's shoulder. He stumbled, groaning. "AMBUSH. He yelled. Figures in dark armor stepped from the rocks, 4 of them. Fast-armed, bounty. Hunters 1 grabbed Celia. She fought, kicking, scratching, but they cuffed her in seconds. Holt tried to raise his blaster, but another dart hit his leg. He dropped to one knee. The lead hunter laughed. "The house sends its regards. Traitor girl. You're too late," she spat. "The truth's already out." "No," the hunter said, pressing a shock baton to her back. "You'll be dust before anyone hears your name." Then a bang. The hunter staggered. Holt, blood dripping from his temple, had had fired his last round. He stood, wavering. "I'm not letting you take her," he growled. The other hunters raised their weapons. Celia screamed, "No." But before they could shoot, a thunderous engine roared overhead. From the clouds, black ship descended sleek, massive, glowing with human markings. A voice crackled from the sky. "This is Captain Rayner of Earth Command. Stand down or be destroyed." The bounty hunters froze. The next blast lit up the rock, sending the hunters diving for cover. From the sky, help had arrived. Asterisk rocks exploded in a storm of dust and fire. The human warship, ECS Vindicator, hovered just above the ravine, its cannons glowing hot. Bright floodlights swept the battlefield as figures in Earth's military armor rappelled down swift, silent and ready for war. The bounty hunters panicked. They scattered like rats. Commander Holt, still bleeding from his shoulder, staggered to Celia's side. Her cuffs were blown apart by the cannon blast. He pulled her behind a boulder and shielded her as more blasts struck the ground nearby. "Who are they?" Celia gasped. "Earth Command," Holt said, coughing. "Old friends, or what's left of them." Moments later, the ground forces surrounded the hunters. In under a minute, the ambush was crushed. 2 surrendered. 1 fled and was vaporized. The last, Holt didn't look. A tall woman with a scar over her brow approached them. Her armor was scratched but powerful, the Earth emblem still shining on her chest. "Commander Holt," she said. Lowering her rifle, Captain Rayner Holt replied with a wince. "You've got my signal?" She nodded. "Didn't think we'd be rescuing a fugitive princess?" Celia looked confused. Rayner's gaze softened. "He didn't tell you?" "He sent a beacon across 3 sectors. Gave your name. Your story."
"I'll be your..."
"Truth." Celia froze. "The truth. You shared it." Holt looked at her, steady. "He said if you survived, you could change the galaxy. So I made sure they know you're still alive." Tears filled her eyes. And not from fear, but something stronger. For the first time in her life, she had an army at her back. Rayner turned serious. "You've made enemies now. All of us have. The House of Velsereth won't stop. Not after this." "I don't want to run anymore," Celia whispered. "Then don't," Rayner replied. "Come with us." Hours later, inside the ECS Vindicator, Celia stood in the medical bay. Her wounds were cleaned, her body wrapped in soft fabric, her cuffs removed. Her long hair flowed clean again. Her glow returned. She saw herself in the mirror and didn't recognize the girl staring back. She looked stronger, braver, free. Outside the med bay, Holt sat alone, his shirt replaced with a bandage vest, arm wrapped tightly. He stared at a datapad showing images of the galaxy and ships moving toward her family's system. "Earth is moving again," Rayner said. "Walking in, it should have never stopped," Holt replied. "We left too many behind." Rayner looked at him carefully. "You're not just protecting her, are you?" He didn't answer. "She's not just cargo or a cause." Still, he said nothing. "I've known you for years, Holt," Rayner said softly. "You've only ever fought for one thing, the people you love." He finally looked up. "Then maybe this time I'll win." Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, inside a golden palace carved into a cliff, a figure stood before a wide star map. She wore robes of blood-red silk. Her skin was pale like ice, her fingers sharp as blades. "Lady Charakasan," to Celia, high-seated the House of Velsereth. "She's alive," Chara hissed, her voice cold with rage. "Yes, my lady," said a servant, trembling. Rescued by human forces, a broadcast was sent. Her bloodline was confirmed. Tashara slammed a fist on the crystal table. "We buried that scandal. We silenced every voice. And now," she turned to a massive window, "if Celia speaks, if she gathers allies, the people will remember the old laws, and they will choose her." "She must be stopped," the servant whispered. "No," Tashara said with a wicked smile. "She must be destroyed publicly. Her death will end the whispers. Her blood must vanish." She raised a hand. Summon the Darkwing fleet. Prepare the Bloodfire cannons. If Earth hides her, we'll burn Earth's allies to ash. Back on. The Vindicator Celia stood beside Holt on the observation deck. Below them, stars burned. I never thought I'd stand on a warship, she said. You're not a slave anymore, Holt replied. She turned to him, voice soft. You saved me more than once. You risked your life again and again. He shrugged. You made it easy. Why? She asked. He paused, then answered quietly. Because when I looked in your eyes, I saw someone who was never meant to be. Chained. Someone who deserved to choose her own story. Celia's voice cracked. Then let this be part of that story. She took his hand, and for once, neither of them looked away. Asterisk. The stars trembled over the quiet planet of Delcar Prime. Ships arrived, dozens of them Mirth vessels, rebel craft, old merchant guilds, even deserters from alien houses who had once sworn loyalty to the old bloodlines. Now, they came for something different. They came for her Celia. No longer chained, it's no longer hidden. She stood on the bridge of the ECS Vindicator, clothed in deep royal black, long silver hair tied behind her shoulders, a golden band upon her forehead, not just decoration, the symbol of her heritage. She looked out at the sky filled with lights, and she did not flinch behind her. Commander Holt adjusted his armor. Not Earth military issue, this one was his own design. Lighter, faster, built for one purpose. Protect her or die trying. You still have time to walk away, she said softly, without turning. He stepped forward. I already did that once. In life, never again. She faced him now, her eyes warm. They will fire on us the moment we step foot on Velserith's soil. Then we step with fire beneath our heels, he answered. Their hands brushed. Neither said more. The Vindicator moved into position just beyond the boundary of her homeworld. All around them, fleets were aligning, not to attack, but to stand witness, because, today, the forgotten daughter of a noble house would return. Not to beg, not to hide, but to claim her name. The Cums blinked. A signal came in from the palace fortress orbiting the capital city. It was her cousin. Lady T's single quotes. Shara, her face filled the screen. Cold, beautiful. Poison in every word. You're alive, Shara said, voice like glass. A shame. I told them your bones were dust. Celia lifted her chin. You tried to bury me. But I grew in the dark. Chara smiled. You have no army, just old ships and broken humans. I have something more, Celia replied. I have the truth. Chara's eyes narrowed. Speak it then, and sign your death, Celia stepped forward and spoke, her voice calm but full of fire. My name is Celia of House Velserith. I am the blood of your brother. My mother was not a mistake. She was strength. I was sold into chains by my own blood. But I was freed by a human who saw me as more than a name. Stand here today not to ask for a throne, but to demand the right to live without fear. Silence. Then, from the gathered fleets, one ship after another lit their beacon lights, a sign of recognition. Chishara's face cracked. You think lights will save you? She raised her hand. Fire. From the fortress, bloodfire cannons charged red plasma strong enough to melt planets. But Holt was faster. He shouted, brace. Vindicator spun. Energy shields flared, but the first blast hit. The ship shook, metal groaned. Shields at 43%, Raynor shouted from the helm. Can't take another like that. Then another voice came on the Cums. A deep, gruff, human voice. Earth Fleet Delta to Vindicator permission to engage. Ah! Holt grinned. About time. From the edge of the stars, Earth's forgotten titan arrived, a legendary warship from the old war's massive, silent, coated in scars. The ECs. Ironheart. The sky roared. The Ironheart opened fire wave after wave of kinetic blasts, pure force wrapped in shockwaves. The fortress shields broke on the third hit. On the fifth, the palace cannons fell silent. Inside the fortress, Tashara watched in horror. They came for her, she whispered. Outside, Celia stepped forward, watching the flames rise over. Her homeland, no more chains, she said. Holt placed a hand on her shoulder. She turned. You freed me once, but this time, I claim myself. And then she said it, I will not be a forgotten heir. I will be a chosen leader. A message went out across systems carried on civilian channels. Military relays, the old satellites that hadn't worked in decades. The galaxy heard her voice, and they answered. One by one, old nobles swore fealty. Broken houses bent the knee, even. Alien leaders who once laughed at humanity now saw what one human and one lost girl had. Done together, they changed history, not with armies, but with truth and courage and love. Weeks later, a quiet garden built among the ruins of the old Velsereth. Palace Holt sat on a bench. Watching the stars, he heard soft footsteps. Celia sat beside him, dressed not in royal robes, but a simple white wrap. I thought I'd find you here, she said. I like the quiet, he replied. You always run when things settle. I'm not running, he said, just waiting. For what? Turned to her. For you to tell me what you want. She smiled. I already did. And then she leaned forward, took his hand, and whispered, I choose you. Not. Because she owed him, not because he saved her, but because she was finally free to choose, and she did.